So, we're now talking about beings other than Samantabhadra, the initial Buddha, the original protector. So, people like us, how could we say that we are primordially enlightened? Now, I would like to go a little faster, but there doesn't seem any way to go faster and get on to the second chapter. But the technique of slow reading unfortunately seems to be the only way to do this. However, the faster we can go, the better. So if you want to stop me at one point and say, stop grinding the grindstone, move on, Jeffrey, please do so. Just say to me, we can read this ourselves. Go to the next paragraph, and I will hail you. Shout out things like, this one ain't difficult, with or we aren't that stupid, or or if you want to praise me, you can say, if you want to trick me, you can say, not trick me, say it in a praising way, you can say, you've given us enough background so that we can read this one. That's the pleasant way of saying we ain't that stupid. In other words, we've smartened up. You know, the pleasant way. So, though they are not initial Buddhas, they includes us when we've become enlightened. So even all Buddhas of the three times, so that includes us. So all Buddhas of the three times. So now we're talking about everybody except Samantabhadra, the initial Buddha. So all Buddhas of the three times is going to include us. Buddhafied in the place of release of the essential pure great light of the basis, upon having conquered predispositions for mistake. So that he's no longer talking about Samantabhadra, but people like us. So we've got predispositions for mistake, right? Like we're showing our own predispositions for mistake all the time. So we've conquered them how? By means of the Vajra-like pristine wisdom. So this probably is the Vajra-like pristine wisdom at the end of the continuum of being a sentient being. So this is probably the final I'm translating. Uninterrupted meditative stabilization at the end of the 10th Bodhisattva ground. That's going to turn us into a Buddha. Right? That's how we're going to get over all of these problems. Whatever way you do it, we're going to have that kind of an antidote. And so, and we'll be perceiving that objects of abandonment are primordially non-existent. That doesn't mean that we went to all this trouble for no purpose. We did have these predispositions, but we see that the very nature of reality is without all of these problems. At that point, what do you say? I mean, when you see the nature of reality, you see that these problems are non-existent, but by getting used to it, you get to the fruit stage of Buddhahood. And I added the word "that" here, and that the naturally pure sphere of reality is endowed with all uncontaminated Buddha attributes. The Buddhas of the three times, so that the three times includes the Buddhas of the future, so that includes us. Don't look at the situation in accordance with the outlook of sentient beings. Remember that the term Semjen, sattva, is defined as beings with minds that have obstructions yet to be gotten rid of. Although Buddhas have, well, in Gelugpa it says have minds, they don't have a mind that have obstructions yet to be gotten rid of. So if in Nyingma if I switch to my Nyingma hat, we will use, if we make a differentiation between Sem, mind, and Rikpa, give me the translation.
Intrinsic awareness.
Intrinsic awareness. Then Buddhas are beyond mind, but they do have consciousness. Intrinsic awareness is a consciousness, but they no longer have a consciousness that has obstructions yet to be gotten rid of. So those are sentient beings. Okay? So the Buddhas of the three times don't look at things, look at things in accordance with the outlook of sentient beings who have obstructions yet to be gotten rid of. So they don't look at things how that the spontaneous attributes of the effect state are suitable to be separated from the noumenon, that you could have the noumenon without the attributes of the effect. And they also do not perceive that objects of abandonment exist. And so Khetsun Sangpo wants us to know that the entity of the noumenon is not polluted with defilement, even if adventitious defilements need to be removed. So then, where are we Nyingmabas going to say that where do the defilements exist? They exist in the efflorescence, in the effervescence, the efflorescence, the, what are our many words? The prowess, the artifice, the projective prowess, in the dynamism, in the vibrancy. So that's all one word in Tibetan. The zel of the noumenon, of the intrinsic awareness. In other words, remember that you have the intrinsic awareness and the vibrancy of that intrinsic awareness, the dynamism of it. And remember, that means we can blame the vibrancy, which but you can never blame the intrinsic awareness for these problems. But also a whole lot of good things once you know the once you know what the I want to use the English word relationship, but I've never seen that word relationship used. What this dynamism is to the water and the waves, that the waves are just water. When you know this, then you can do all sorts of marvelous and good things. It's not just blameworthy bad things, but all sorts of good things with the Tzel. Tzel. Therefore, not by the impact of the standpoint of sentient beings. So who are sentient beings? Ranging from the ordinary, who have not generated any of the attributes of the path in their continuums, up to great bodhisattvas at the end of their continuum as sentient beings. End of the continuum, the great bodhisattvas, we're just talking about this final uninterrupted path just before becoming a Buddha. So ranging from, dumbasses, the very bottom point of sentient beings, to the highest of the high of the 10th ground bodhisattvas, not by the impact of the standpoint of such sentient beings, but in accordance with the impact of the standpoint of singular soul Buddhahood, Sangye Nyakchik, in which the equal noumenon, unalterable and immutable in the three times, is perceived. The equal noumenon. Very interesting, this equal noumenon, in which everything is equal. If everything's equal, how do you make a difference? All these qualities of Buddhahood, how can you say this is this and this is that if everything's equal? It's, it's saying undifferentiable. It's going to say this to them. I'm poking fun now.
But you cannot say anything else because it is uncompounded.
Yeah. And, or is that why? We ourselves draw, we say emptiness. Emptiness is uncompounded. And so this clear light, which is the basic nature of things also, then it has to be uncompounded. And now, as you're saying, Boris, all of these attributes
Does equal mean the same? Does equal mean the same?
Well,
Because if it's the same, we couldn't distinguish.
well, you're raising a good point. Or does it mean equal in that they are all uncompounded, empty, clear light? In these respects, but then they in another respect, they all have their own qualities, you know. The more I read this half or 60% of this book that's been translated, the more I read it over and over and over, the more I think, well, I've got to finish the rest of the book. At least that. And then, of course, there's a whole other part. This is the second one of the trilogy. Well, but at least I've got to finish this book. Okay, good point. Equal noumenon, unalterable and immutable in the three times, past, present, future. There is no tenet of the Vajra vehicle exceeding ascertainment by the view that basis and fruit are undifferentiable in a great sameness. Now maybe that's what the sameness is. Or, well, you see, from that perspective of Buddhahood, the basis and the fruit are the same. This is to be known as the final meaning. Okay. Nevertheless, because the Buddha realizes the noumenon just as it is, the body of pristine wisdom, non-dual with the noumenal element of attributes, is permanent and stable as long as space lasts. And appearances of cyclic existence vanish as unstable. Now, in Gelug, even if wisdom is impermanent, and impermanent means momentary, it goes on steadily forever. So it's steady. You can say it's stable then. Appearances of cyclic existence, from the point of view from a Buddha's point of view, do vanish because one perceives only endless purity. But a Buddha perceives, I'll put on my yellow hat, our easy out on this is that a Buddha perceives the appearances of cyclic existence because those beings because they appear to beings in cyclic existence. And we could say in an aside, whatever that means. Therefore, this called the ultimate body of the noumenon. Now, actually, when I looked at the Tibetan here, I said, oh, where is she in this? She's actually at the end of the basis. This called the ultimate noumenon of the basis. So I guess maybe to make this clear, we should put of the basis up here. Of the basis. The ultimate noumenon of the basis. The ultimate noumenon of the basis. Or body of attributes of the basis. And move that. We'll leave that one where it is. And move Chugu, the Tibetan over on the other side, and we're going to have to say Shi Chugu here. So you'll get the revision. It must be, does the turned on Chuniki and it says Ga'am, it should say Guam. Oh, she turned them, Chuniki Guam. Well, no, I guess we'll have to leave the last one there. Okay, of the basis. We'll just repeat of the basis twice. Body of attributes of the basis, the actual body of attributes. The object of realization, what we're finally aiming at, is the body of attributes. And from such realization, the pristine wisdom body of attributes, perceiving the varieties of phenomena, while being non-dualistic with the sphere of non-proliferation, is achieved. Okay. And this luminosity is the final subtle basis of the complete enjoyment body. The complete enjoyment body appears out of this luminosity. I don't think there's any differentiation from Geluk here. But I'd have to look carefully. The complete enjoyment body appears from the basis of the Yeshe Chugu, the wisdom body of attributes. The complete enjoyment body dawns from it, and unbiased, all-pervasive compassion is the final basis of the dawning of emanation bodies. Now, that tells us that makes a lot of sense. Emanation bodies are clearly appear for the sake of helping beings. So it makes tremendous sense that all-pervasive compassion would be the basis of the dawning of emanation bodies. And it's unbiased. Unbiased must mean that it's well, now, I would say it's unbiased because it has no bias with respect to sentient beings. Khetsun Sangpo says it's unbiased in the sense that it pervades all factors of cyclic existence and nirvana. That's not as appealing to me as what automatically would be what would well up from my own background. And I'm not praising my own background. It comes from... Because all factors of cyclic existence and nirvana, the pain of cyclic existence, as an emanation of unbiased, of all pervasive compassion, doesn't strike me as comfortable. That sounds like God, producing pain as something for us to learn from, no matter how horrible it gets. Anyway, then hence, this intrinsic awareness, which contains the undifferentiable three bodies of the basic time, is primordially enlightened. You see when it says undifferentiable three bodies? what does it mean to have three bodies that are undifferentiable? This is continually a problem. You know, it's back to that word equal. When it's undifferentiable, then you can't say, I mean, in what sense is it three then? Is it, you know, mushed together like put into a blender? Where you no longer have carrots and celery and tomatoes, but you no longer can point to those three. So why say there are three? Huh. So someone might wonder, if in that way intrinsic awareness is primordially Buddha, then how does mistake arise? It couldn't arise. Sentient beings' mistake never exists in the sphere of reality. So what I was just thinking is, somebody's got to channel Mipam. You know, sometime when you've done enough, when I've done enough reading and contemplation, sometimes I feel, well, I can, you know, almost close my eyes and the answer will come. And when I've studied with enough teachers, then something comes. Because you're in the environment, but I'm clearly not there. So in lieu of that, we have to ask Mipam Gyatsho to appear. It never exists in the sphere of reality, the basal mode of abiding. Mistake never occurs in the sphere of reality, emptiness. Well, Khetsun Sangpo just said emptiness, but emptiness along with clear light, you know, yin deng ye shen yi su me. The non-dual emptiness and yeshe, pristine wisdom, clear light, whatever. Then, as an interesting, bothersome Tibetan here, well then, if mistake never occurs that way, who mistakes? Well, actually, this word who, I have some weird memory that this word who also can mean what. And and then the problem is if who can mean what, is what agentive or object? What is mistaken, or is it what mistakes? So anyway, the word su basically means who, but I'm not sure this is the way it's taken. This is the way he means it. Because that doesn't seem to be the context. And the answer doesn't seem to address that, and he doesn't put it in the agentive case. Anyway, within the context of appearances arisen from that sphere of reality. So you see, you've got this, and then you get some efflorescence, which is the most fun word that David Germano came up with. You get some dynamism happening, which I like to think of as, waking up from a deep state and something happening. I like applying it that way. I don't want to take his meaning that way, but I like applying it that way. The yogi waking up from a deep state, applying it that way, using this teaching this way. He has a much broader meaning. I'm not saying that this is his referent, but I'm applying it this way. And then Jeffrey makes the mistake of apprehending a self. But the fact is that this sphere of reality is without I and self. Now, what's the difference between I and self? Is this maybe inherently existent I and inherently existent other phenomena? Or two levels of misapprehension of I, and even two levels of misapprehension of other phenomena. But anyway, due to the fact that the sphere of is not realized, right? The fact that, is not realized. So dumb old Jeffrey doesn't know that the sphere of reality is without I and self. It doesn't realize that. And thus Jeffrey's mistaken. By realizing the sphere of reality in the context of appearances of the sphere of reality, Samantabhadra arose primordially realized. So if you think of waking up this way, some stuff appears, and immediately you see it as water, right? Like Samantabhadra. Then this dynamism is this stuff. See, if, let's continue using Jeffrey, woke up and there's this stuff, and he saw this stuff as the water, he would be released.
But does that sound like he was caught at one point and then released?
No.
If he was never caught, because he never was caught.
He never was caught, yet if he made the mistake, he'd be like us. So he was in if we put it in my terms, he was in a neutral state. And there was, let us say, the possibility of going either way. And he put it together, and so was released. Nevertheless, in the entity of the sphere of reality, release and mistake are essentially pure. Are pure ganetak, are pure, are we going to say essentially pure or pure from the first letter of the alphabet? Pure from Ga. That's all it says. Ganetak. Still in the entity of the sphere of reality, I need to bring translation a bit up more literal. Maybe you tell me. Still, should we make it one sentence? Still, no, English is more two sentences. I'm going along with you. In the entity of the sphere of reality, the two, both. It does say both. Niga. Both release and mistake are pure, ganeta, are pure, are essentially pure. So I put in the Tibetan for Ganeta in Tibetan. I'll put it in brackets. And just as earlier, so even at the time of appearing as cyclic existence and nirvana, the entity of the sphere of reality does not fluctuate from suchness to something else. That means in the entity of the sphere of reality. And just as earlier, so even at the time of appearing as cyclic existence and nirvana, I think we ought to repeat that. That's one of those things that that in Tibetan, that because it's in the earlier part of the Tibetan sentence, you're supposed to bring over into the latter part of the sentence. In the entity of the sphere of reality. So you see, still, in the entity of the sphere of reality, both release and mistake are essentially pure. And just as earlier, so even when somebody makes mistake, so even at the time of appearing as cyclic existence and nirvana, the entity of the sphere of reality does not fluctuate from suchness to something else in the entity of the sphere of reality. So even when this is mistaken, there's no fluctuation down here. Don't blame down here. Just because we speak of its efflorescence as having cyclic existence or nirvana going on in it.